Every trader thinks he's fighting the market, but I learned the truth. I was never fighting the market. I was fighting myself. The market has no emotions. It doesn't care about your dreams, your plans, or your pride. It moves with the sum total of human desire, fear, and greed, colliding on a battlefield called the ticker tape. And if you can't control those same forces inside yourself, you'll be destroyed by the very thing you're trying to master. When I first walked into the bucket shops of Boston, I thought the game was about numbers. I memorized prices, patterns, movements. I believed if I studied hard enough, I could predict what came next. But the market isn't numbers. It's nerves, it's hope, panic, and hesitation disguised as data. Every tick is a heartbeat. Every chart is a story of emotion. Most traders never realize this. They think the market humbles them because it's unfair. But the market doesn't humble you. It reveals you. It shows you your weaknesses in real time until you have nowhere left to hide. When I made my first fortune, I thought I'd conquered it. I was young, sharp, confident. Every trade felt like proof of my genius. But the market has a cruel sense of timing. It gives you success first, so the lesson that follows hurts twice as much. I remember one of my early wipeouts vividly. I wasn't beaten by the tape. I was beaten by the man in the mirror. My ego wanted to be right more than it wanted to make money, and the market punished that arrogance without mercy. And that's when it hit me. Every trade is a test of your own psychology. You're not buying stocks, you're buying emotions. You're not selling stocks, you're selling beliefs. Every decision you make is a reflection of who you are, patient or impulsive, humble or proud, calm or desperate. When you realize that, the market stops being a mystery and starts becoming a mirror. Most men fear the market because it exposes what they refuse to face. Fear of loss, hunger for validation, the addiction to being right, all of it plays out in the prices they chase. That's why I say, the tape is the purest form of truth on earth. It doesn't lie, it doesn't care. It just reflects the crowd's psychology with ruthless precision. If you learn to read it, not just the price, but the emotion behind the price, you'll start to see what others can't. When the panic of 1907 hit, the air on Wall Street felt electric. You could smell fear. Men shouted, phones rang endlessly, faces went pale. Stocks collapsed in minutes. I wasn't surprised. I'd seen it coming. I'd been watching the emotional shift long before the headlines caught up. Greed had turned to denial. Denial turned to panic, and panic always ends the same way. Liquidation. I was short. Not because I was lucky, but because I was emotionally detached. While others were breaking down, I was holding firm. That was the first time I truly understood the difference between being smart and being steady. The market rewards control, not intelligence. I've seen men twice as smart as me lose everything because they couldn't stay calm under pressure. And I've seen men with half my knowledge make fortunes simply because they had the discipline to sit still when everyone else was losing their minds. Control, that's the currency the market respects. When I studied the tape, I wasn't just reading price action, I was reading the human condition. Hope, greed, panic, euphoria. Those are the real indicators. They always have been. Every price rise is a story of greed. Every crash is a story of fear. Every recovery is a story of belief reborn. Once you can see that cycle clearly, you stop fighting it and start flowing with it. That's what I mean when I say, the market isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. It forces you to confront what's real about yourself, your patience, your self-control, your conviction. When you lose, it's not punishing you, it's teaching you. It's showing you that your psychology cracked under pressure, and when you win, truly win, it's not luck, it's not timing. It's a reflection that for a moment your mind and the market were in perfect sync. The psychology behind my biggest wins wasn't found in any book or formula. It came from experience, from losing more than I thought I could bear and still coming back. Because every time I fell, I learned a little more about myself. I learned that fear doesn't go away. You just learn to act in spite of it. I learned that greed can never be satisfied. It can only be controlled. And I learned that the only real mastery in this game is mastery of your own emotions. The market is chaos. It's a living thing. But within that chaos lies a rhythm only visible to those calm enough to see it. I spent years chasing the market, trying to outthink it, outsmart it, outguess it. But the day I stopped chasing, the day I started listening, was the day I became a trader. And that's where my greatest wins began. Not in the numbers, not in the systems, but in the stillness between emotion and execution. Every trader wants the secret. Here it is. You don't trade stocks, you trade yourself until you understand that you'll always be reacting. But the moment you do, the market stops being a storm and starts becoming a mirror. They say the hardest battle is fought in silence, and that's true. But they forget to tell you where that battle takes place, inside your own mind. Every great win I ever had began long before I placed a trade. It began in the quiet war between fear and conviction, patience and impulse, logic and emotion. That's the real fight. That's the war no one sees. You can study all the charts in the world, memorize every trend, but none of it will matter when your nerves start to shake. When the market turns against you and the ticker begins to move faster, that's when your training ends and your psychology begins. I've watched men destroy themselves over a single price tick. They couldn't bear to be wrong for even a moment. They turned small mistakes into ruin because they fought the market, and the market always wins that fight. But here's what most never understand. The market doesn't break you. You break yourself. When prices rise, you feel invincible. When they fall, you feel cursed. That's not the market's doing. That's your ego whispering lies. The same ego that made you rich yesterday will bury you tomorrow if you let it. The inner war never ends. You win it one decision at a time, one act of discipline at a time. I remember the panic of 1929 as if it were yesterday. The ticker tape was running behind by hours. People were losing everything in minutes. Wall Street was chaos, phones ringing, clerks screaming, brokers pale and hollow-eyed. It was the kind of madness that only happens when greed turns into fear overnight. But I wasn't watching the noise. I was watching behavior. Weeks before the crash, I'd seen the same story playing out, just in different form. Stocks climbing on emotion, not logic. Rumors replacing reason. Men buying because others were buying. That's when I knew the end was near. Because when the crowd stops thinking and starts hoping, the smart trader starts preparing. I'd built my short positions carefully, quietly, and when the fall came, it was brutal. But I was ready. While the world was panicking, I was calm. That wasn't luck. That was psychology. You see, I had learned not to flinch when the world loses its nerve, to act when others freeze, to stand still when others stampede. That's not instinct. That's trained composure. The ability to stay centered while the market burns around you. Most traders lose that center. They let noise infect their thoughts. Every headline, every whisper, every tick becomes a signal, until they drown in their own reactions. But here's the truth. The market doesn't test your knowledge, it tests your nerve. Every great win I ever made came from waiting, from sitting through the noise and trusting my judgment when the crowd screamed the opposite. The hardest skill in this business isn't analysis, it's patience. People think success is found in action. It isn't. It's found in restraint. The market rewards those who can wait for the perfect moment, not those who trade out of boredom or fear. I learned to sit still when I was right and to cut losses fast when I was wrong. That's not strategy. That's discipline. And discipline isn't built in profits. It's built in pain. You don't learn control when you're winning. You learn it when you're losing and still choose not to break. That's the crucible of every real trader. Surviving the moments when everything inside you screams to give up, to change your mind, to chase, to double down, to do something. But you don't. You sit, you breathe, you wait. Because the man who can master inaction in a world addicted to movement, that man controls the game. People always ask me, Livermore, how did you know when to sell? How did you know when to strike? The truth is, I didn't always know. But I knew myself. I knew when my emotions were lying to me. I knew when I was trading for glory instead of reason. I knew when the market's rhythm had shifted, not by numbers, but by tone, by pulse, by feeling, because the market has a pulse, and once you feel it, you can sense when it starts to quicken. The crowd doesn't sense that. They only see the surface, the prices, the charts, the headlines. But beneath it all is psychology, raw and real. When fear spikes, it shows in every delayed order. When greed surges, it's in every breakout without volume. The market leaves fingerprints everywhere. Most traders never learn to see them because they're too busy chasing the money. But the money is never the real prize. The real prize is control. Control over yourself. Control over your thoughts, your impulses, your reactions. That's the edge no indicator can give you. When you finally win that inner war, everything changes. Losses stop feeling like failures. They become feedback. Mistakes stop defining you, they refine you. The market stops being chaos, it becomes choreography. I've lost millions, I've made them back. But through it all, the only constant was me, my psychology. That's why I say, before you can conquer the market, you must first conquer the man who trades it. When I look back on my greatest wins, 1907, 1929, they weren't victories of intellect. They were victories of discipline, of composure under fire. Because when fear grips the crowd, the man who remains calm becomes the rarest thing on earth, a predator among prey. The market rewards courage, but only when that courage is grounded in understanding. Reckless men call it bravery when they gamble. I call it ignorance. Real courage is quiet. It's the strength to stand alone while the world calls you wrong, until the tape proves you right. That's what the inner war demands: silence, strength, and the will to outlast chaos. The longer you trade, the more you realize it's not the market that changes, it's you. Every loss reshapes you. Every win tempts you. Every decision reveals what kind of trader you really are. And when the dust settles, the market always tells the truth, who you are, and whether you've mastered your own mind or lost to it. Because the real battlefield is not on Wall Street, it's in your own head. And the war never ends. Every man wants to master the market, but very few ever realize the truth. The only thing worth mastering is yourself. I spent a lifetime trying to outsmart the market. I tried formulas, systems, signals. I tried to predict the unpredictable. But the longer I played this game, the clearer it became. The market doesn't reward prediction. It rewards control. Control over your emotions. Control over your reactions. Control over your impulses when everything inside you screams to act. That's what separates the professionals from the casualties, the ability to sit still in a world that's shaking apart. When I was younger, I thought trading was about brilliance, about seeing what others couldn't. I believed that if I was the sharpest mind in the room, I'd always win. But that illusion shattered the first time I made a fortune, and lost it faster than I made it. Intelligence didn't save me, discipline did. There's a moment every trader faces, a moment when your conviction is tested to its breaking point. The tape turns against you. The news screams disaster. The crowd rushes for the exits. And there you are, standing alone with nothing but your judgment and your nerve. That's where you find out who you really are. Most men crumble under that weight. They can't stand the silence, the uncertainty, the isolation that comes with conviction. They think confidence is loud. It isn't. Confidence is calm. And calm is power. I learned to trust my system when my emotions told me not to. I learned to hold when everything around me said to sell. I learned to sell when greed whispered just a little higher. Because the market's greatest trick is to use your own mind against you. When you're right, it makes you greedy. When you're wrong, it makes you fearful. It pulls you from one extreme to another until you're no longer trading logic, you're trading emotion. And that's where most traders die. Not financially, psychologically. They lose faith in themselves, they lose patience, they lose composure, and once the mind cracks, the account follows. I've been there. I've watched fortunes vanish in a single afternoon. I've felt that hollow weight in my chest, that disbelief that something so certain could crumble so fast. But pain has a strange way of teaching you what pleasure never could. Every loss carved away a piece of arrogance. Every mistake stripped away illusion. What was left wasn't genius. It was clarity. And clarity is what makes the difference between a gambler and a trader. A gambler acts because he feels he must. A trader acts because he knows he should. That difference between feeling and knowing is everything. The day I stopped trading my emotions and started trading my plan was the day my fortune began to build again. I stopped trying to be right and started trying to last. Because in the long run, it's not about how often you're right. It's about how long you can stay in the game. The market punishes those who seek excitement. It rewards those who seek consistency. The man who needs action is doomed. The man who can wait in boredom, in silence, in stillness, that man will win when the time comes. I call that the art of waiting. It's not glamorous, it doesn't feel heroic, but it's the difference between those who burn out and those who endure. Every great run I ever had came from that same stillness. The ability to do nothing when doing nothing was the hardest thing in the world. To watch others move, panic, chase, scream, while you remain motionless. That's not passivity, that's power. Because trading is not about speed, it's about precision. One clean, decisive move is worth 1,000 impulsive ones. And the only way to make that move with confidence is to master the one person who keeps getting in your way. You. The market is a mirror. It reflects everything you are. Your fears, your pride, your impatience. Every tick tests your resolve. Every swing tempts your greed. And every crash whispers one question. Can you hold your nerve? The men who can, those are the ones remembered. I've seen brilliant analysts destroyed by emotion. I've seen ordinary men become legends through patience. Because the market doesn't care who you are. It only measures how long you can control yourself when the pressure turns unbearable. And make no mistake, it will. At some point, every trader meets the storm that defines him. That moment when logic collapses and all that's left is instinct. When you're staring at the screen and the numbers don't look like numbers anymore. They look like your future, your reputation, your worth. In that moment, you either master yourself or you lose everything. I've walked through that storm more times than I care to admit. I've seen my name in the papers, hero one year, fool the next. I've been praised, hated, envied, forgotten, but none of that ever mattered. Because through it all, the one constant opponent wasn't the market. It was me. Every trade, every loss, every victory was a conversation between who I was and who I wanted to be. And when I look back now, I see it clearly. My biggest wins weren't the millions I made. My biggest wins were the moments I stayed disciplined when every emotion begged me to surrender. That's mastery, not over the market, over yourself. When you reach that level, trading stops being chaos. It becomes art. You see fear forming before it hits the tape. You sense greed building before the breakout. You act without hesitation. Not because you're emotional, but because you're prepared. And that's what separates the legends from the lost. So if you want the truth, here it is. You can't control the market, you can't control what others do, but you can control yourself. And when you do, you'll see the market differently. Not as a battlefield, but as a mirror reflecting your discipline back at you. That's where all real success begins. Not with predictions, not with luck, but with mastery of the self. That's the final lesson the market teaches, and the hardest one to learn. The game never ends. The cycle never stops. But if you can conquer the emotions inside you, if you can rise above fear, greed, and pride, then you don't just win in trading, you win in life. Because the market doesn't just build fortunes. It builds or destroys the man behind them. And in my time, I've seen both. I've lived both. But the only victories that endure are the ones fought and won within.